So let's talk about this new head coaching job for the Lakers. As we know, Darvin Ham got fired this summer for good reason, as he was probably one of the worst coaches in the NBA. I don't say that with bias, and neither do I say that because of the Lakers' success. I just say that because when you actually watch the games, he was pretty terrible. And it's obvious that him and LeBron, as two players who were inputting into the offense, did not work together. We saw a lot of clips which varied from the clipboard of Darvin Ham saying some crazy things or some things that probably were not as professional as they needed to be, them having some questionable rotations, and the Lakers, which are a team which are supposed to be really good and are supposed to be one of the better teams in the NBA, not being able to even make the second round for 2 seasons straight. Well, not 2 seasons, but not being able to, really have convincing runs in the playoffs whenever they would run into the Denver Nuggets. Last season and this season, they lost to the Nuggets and they couldn't get past them in any of the two. And I feel like that was the real thing that made them switch the coach. I don't think that it was based on having a playoff success, because last season, if we're being 1,000% honest, the Lakers had a lot of playoff success under Darvin Ham, and they made it to the conference finals where they lost, yes, 4-0 to the Nuggets, but they had a pretty good run. Now, what I will say is this the fault of Darvin Ham? Is this the fault of the Lakers team? Is this the fault of the front office? I don't think so. I think this is more of the fault of everybody combined. I feel like not the front office itself, because I think that they've been the only competent ones. The Rob Pelinka and his team have actually done some great trades, have brought in some players which complement their stars, have been able to build the team, in a manner where it's been great. And the only moves that I feel like were bad for the team were getting Gabe Vincent and removing Dennis Schroeder. I feel like those were the only two moves that really affected the team in a very strong way. But apart from that, we've seen that this Lakers team has been one of the better ones when it comes to just being able to win games. Like in the packed Western Conference, they've been finishing right with good record, but in my opinion, I feel like the bigger problem was more of the fact that they are competing in a conference where 47 wins is going to get you the 7th seed. You see, in the East, the team which had 47 wins was the Magic, and they were the 5th seed. So I feel like the problem wasn't that the Lakers were trash. The problem wasn't that the Lakers were bad for the entire season. The problem was that they got close to getting 50 wins. They were 3 wins away from getting 50. And 50 wins in the West maybe get you the 5th seed. Maybe. Because you would have to compete with Dallas. So what I'm going to say is that I don't think that it was as much as a product of the Lakers being bad. I think it was more of a product of the things around them not being as competent. In their conference, they're going to have to be great and amazing and one of the greatest teams of all time just to even get a top 6 seed. And in the NBA in general, since talent is going up and since teams are getting better, we have seen that the Lakers have not been able to keep up with that because they run their franchise through this star-heavy mentality, and it has not been working for them. As we see, both of the teams that are in the finals are teams which are well-assembled teams. Even though, yes, there are some big names in both of those teams, you realize that the most important players of those squads are the players which are not stars, because those are the players which actually win you the games. Your stars could score 90 points, but if the rest of the team doesn't score, then you're losing that game. And I've said that a lot, and I'm going to keep saying it because I feel like it is very important to understand that team building doesn't just come from the players which are on your team. Team building also comes from the role players, coaches, and staff that are an aura, feeling, culture, and a bunch of things which surround your team. So bringing in JJ Redick is kind of a gamble. I feel like Darvin Ham wasn't terrible, even though I do not think that he was great. And I think that's the big consensus with him, that where everyone thinks kind of the same things. But if we're being 1,000% honest, there's nothing that he could do now. He was banned basically from the Lakers. They're not going to bring him back. And even if they do, I wouldn't feel like they would want Darvin Ham again because he was just kind of the representation of what they did not want for their team. I feel like when it comes to both of those guys, and Darvin Ham and JJ Redick, they're completely different. But also, we have to say that just because your first rookie head coach worked and took you to the conference finals doesn't mean that your second one is going to too. Now, JJ Redick as a podcaster has been great. It is obvious that this JJ Redick move has to do a lot with his relationship to LeBron. As JJ Redick and LeBron have a podcast together, they're obviously good friends, and they're obviously people which have a lot of respect and love for each other as players, as ex-NBA players, and as professionals. But when it comes to being a head coach, it takes much more than that. Understanding the intricacies of the game, understanding the game, and how to be a coach, how to lead 15 guys in a roster, how to be the guy which is telling the GM which trades are better for the team, how to be the most influential guy on the roster. I feel like all of these things are more than just understanding basketball. It's obvious that it is a very big thing that, and I also feel like for the Lakers, is JJ Redick the voice? I feel like for that team, they need somebody who is strong, who cannot be manipulated, someone who is professional, and someone who can go into that locker room and put some order. That's where I feel like Mike Budenholzer would have maybe been a great guy to do it. A guy which has won a championship, dealt with big egos like Giannis and Chris Middleton and a lot of superstars before. Even though I do think that Bucks roster had a lot of teamwork. And go into, like, get yourself a coach for the Lakers. What would be ideal for the Lakers would be getting themselves a coach that can go into the locker room and instantly demand respect from everybody around. And because LeBron is a very hard guy to coach, because he's partially a coach too. Now, what they need is JJ Redick. What they need is Darvin Ham. What they need is another coach. I don't think so. I think that this mentality of what we need is this and what we need is that is kind of failing the Lakers. But I do think that now that you are going to basically sign JJ Redick, look at it from this perspective. Is JJ Redick going to be able to control all of those egos? Is JJ Redick going to be able to take the pressure as a first-year coach? Is JJ Redick experienced enough to know how this Lakers team needs to run their offense, their defense, and how to run every play of the game? And is JJ Redick going to be the coach which can finally start a culture of accountability for the Lakers? And if the answer is yes to those questions, then JJ Redick is the perfect coach for the Lakers squad. If the answer is no to some of those questions, then maybe get a coach which can answer at least most of them. Because I feel like getting a coach just because of what he says on TV, just because of what he says on First Take, just because of the parading that he's done showing his intelligence and how articulate he is not enough to win basketball games. As we know, and if we're being 1,000% honest with these types of things, like JJ Redick has a very articulate person, he's very smart, and he presents himself very well. But there are coaches which don't present themselves with half of that and are some of the most successful coaches of all time. So it is like, if you want to be a great coach, I feel like the first thing that has to come to mind is how to be able to lead a team, how to take a group of base men which have a lot of pride, a lot of skill, want to win, and really have fragile egos, and be able to tell them all, like, hey, we're all a team. We need to ride in this together. This is what the best coaches do. We've seen Mike Malone do it with Denver. We've seen Chris Finch do it with Minnesota. We've seen Jason Kidd do it with Dallas. We've seen Joe Mazzulla do it with Boston, kind of. And we've seen all of the great teams in the NBA right now have their coach establish an identity, have their coach establish accountability, and have their coach establish something. So let's see how this new coach turns out and if JJ Redick can do that for the Lakers.